So I have ranked ARs in Save the World multiple times. It's actually one of my more popular video series, and I figured I'd bring it back, but with a lot more specifics, because I always do S tier at the top, A, B, C, D, and then we skip E because of American education, and then we go straight to F for the worst ARs in the game. We're going to go A through Z. I want to specifically dial in each and every ranking, starting with the Argon Assault Rifle. Actually, one of the sleeper picks in the entire game. It's locked to energy, does really decent damage, and it's actually pretty fun to use, so I'm going to be putting that in the ABC tier. It's actually really similar to the electroshock rifle, which is the exact same weapon, but the electroshock rifle just looks and sounds different, and it is paywalled. So I'm gonna put this down in the JKL tier. It's literally the same weapon, but you had to buy it like forever ago, a couple years ago when it came out. So that's, I think, where that's gonna go. Then we've got the Beat Blaster, one of the better ARs in the entire game. This thing can pierce targets, it can be any element, and it can make them dance. It's very strong. We're gonna be putting that at the top ABC tier. The Blackout AR, a well-deserving position for this one, is up here as well, because it can crit extremely strong, and it's not just critting, but it's the 6 perk. When you have low health and you reload and it booms, it does millions of damage. This thing was responsible for one of the strongest loadouts I've ever shown on the channel, and that high damage actually makes me think of the Primal AR. This weapon does really big damage sometimes. It can be any element, and it's actually pretty good. It's just not as consistent. I'm gonna put that in the PQR tier because I feel like that's a more fitting situation. The Blizzard Blitzer, also very good. Those snowballs, believe it or not, are actually really strong. This weapon on its base stats has the highest DPS of any AR, and I have to say that very specifically because perks and 6 perks and real world situations changes everything, but honestly, for that reason alone, it needs to be in the ABC tier. It is very good. And then we actually have every single AR in here because Archer sent me a list of everything, and this is I don't even remember what this is called. Let me actually find it. Yeah, we have all of the non-legendary schematics in here. So this is the Predator. It's actually really good if you get it early on in Ventures, but it's not really going to scale that well. I'm going to put this in the PQR tier because it's actually, you know, it's better than Z, but it's up there. The Breacher. This thing is insane. Only because it's the predecessor to the Siege Breaker. This weapon is one of the best things you can get early on. ABC is super fitting. The Razor Blade is a weapon I want to make a video on because it's one of the better base game ARs. Again, yeah, it's actually really strong, but it's not quite as good as like the S tier picks and what would have been the S tier picks. So I really think PQR is where the Razor Blade should be. Very fitting. Now the Scourge. Scourge is one of the strongest ARs in the entire game. It is a mythic weapon for a reason. But seeing as you have to actually be 122 to get it, and you have to actually beat the Mythic Storm King, I really think the STU tier is more fitting for that weapon because it's just too unavailable to normal players. Speaking of unavailable, the Gravedigger, one of my favorite weapons in the entire game. This is the best looking weapon in the game by far, and I think that's well deserving of a GHI tier. I think that color matches it really well, but GHI is very fitting. Let's see, which one should we do next? I'm kind of going out of order. Duet. The Steam Cloud on this thing is actually really strong. A lot of people wanted me to cover this weapon. It's not that strong on its own, but if you kill one enemy with that Steam Cloud, it can kill everything in the nearby proximity. I think the DEF tier is actually really fitting for that one as well. Let's do the semi-auto weapons. The Hydra. The Hydra is one of the first strongest weapons I ever found as a new player. Somebody dropped me a 130 copy of this and said, it's an event weapon, you can't have it anymore, and it made me sad. But I felt so cool having this, and I think for that reason alone, it should be in the GHI tier, and right next to it should be the Rat King. Very similar weapon. Both of these pair really well with First Shot Rio in the lead. If you reload, their next 6 shots will crit guaranteed, but the Hydra is just a lot stronger, so I feel like the Rat King should be in the PQR tier. One of the best weapons from the earliest days of Fortnite is the Bundle Bust. That thing used to hit like a truck because the 6 perk, every 5 hits causes an explosion, used to do hundreds of thousands of damage. Now it's only 70% of the weapon damage dealt, so it's a lot less than it used to be. It's why we don't use it as often anymore, but I still think it's deserving of the ABC tier for those reasons mentioned. Now, the Steam Piston. I have not covered this weapon. I really should. Some of the steampunk weapons are really underrepresented on my channel, and this is a semi-auto AR. That Steam Cloud goes a long way once again, but it just doesn't quite save it like the Scourge, so I think the STU tier is a lot more fitting. The Drum Roll. This is a Founder's weapon. This thing, I don't know what it's based on, because most Founders weapons have a base game counterpart. It's a weapon that they're a clone of, but different for Founders with like a unique 6 perk and a different perk option. The Drum Roll is like closest to the Terminator, and but not quite, and it's kind of like the Bobcat. I don't actually know. So if you could tell me which weapon this is a clone of, maybe they just went a different route with it, you can tell me, but it's very strong. I think the DEF tier is very deserving. The Vacuum Tube AR, the chain lightning on this is insane. Pairing it with First Shot Rio is huge, but the nature really holds it back, and I don't want any single element weapons up here at all, so I'm going to be putting this in the VWX tier. Yeah, being locked to nature is just a criminal. If you run that during a fire season, it's all over. The Mercury LMG has the exact same situation as the Bundle Bus. That 5 hits in a row causes an explosion, used to be insane. The Mercury LMG was literally one of the god tier weapons when I first started playing the game. Now it's literally mid tier. I think MNO is exactly where that should go. Let's talk about a good weapon for once. So this one, I need to recall, is the Razor. This is one of the weapons that is a predecessor to the Razor Blade. I think for that reason, it should just be in the PQR tier. That's right where it should be, right next to its older brother. I think that's perfectly fair. The Nocturno is one of the worst weapons in the entire game. Honestly, this weapon is completely garbage. It's mid-tier just because a lot of people like it. It's one of the Founders weapons that you had to pay a lot of money for, but I wouldn't really recommend anybody ever use this piece of crap. So I think mid-tier, right around the MNO tier, is exactly where that should go. Let's talk about the Wraith, just because it's at the bottom here. This is one of the best weapons I've ever seen, but I don't like it very much. So I think I'm going to put it in the VWX tier. That's where that should go. Gamatron. Gamatron is the best weapon in the entire game. It's actually better than the Plasmatic Discharger, but honestly, it's just condensed to an AR. So it's like it's doing Discharger damage, but like in our hopes and spirits. I think GHI is where the Gamatron should go. That's a lot more fitting. My favorite weapon in the entire game is the Ranger. This is a high accuracy AR that shoots 2 burst shots that does really good damage. It could be any element, but it's also just kind of garbage. So PQR is where that belongs for sure. The Pulse Pounder. I love the name of this weapon. This thing sits smashers down. This is one of the new invasion weapons, but it's really only good for smashers and nothing else. So I think the PQR tier is exactly where that should go. Then we got the Dragon's Roar. I always forget the dragon weapons. As I'm recording this, the dragon set just came to the game. So I think for that reason alone, it should be in the DEF tier for sure. The Terminator. We were just talking about you with a drum roll. It is almost exactly the same stats, but I don't like it. So we're going to put that in the STU tier. Then the Lynx AR is basically the FAMAS, which would make it the DEF tier, but it is nowhere near as good. I think the JKL tier is a lot more fitting for the Lynx. It's a 3-round burst AR that does decent single target. It just doesn't shoot fast enough for it to make sense. If it had any crowd clearing, I'd love that. Candy Corn LMG. I think this thing is garbage. It's locked to physical. It doesn't really do good damage. It has a healing 6 perk, which is useless because coconuts are tight. And all that is still true, but it can have triple crit damage. And for that reason alone, the ABC tier is perfect for that. This is the Vindertech Pulsar. Honestly, if it wasn't a Vindertech weapon, it would be in the PQR tier just to be a little bit higher. But because it is in that Vindertech set, really holding it back, being energy only, it's going to have to be in the VWX tier for sure. That's just where that belongs. Now, the Buzz Cut and the Hunter Killer are actually the exact same weapon. The Buzz Cut is a lot cheaper and it's a scavenger weapon, so I think ABC is a lot more fitting for that, but the Hunter Killer is a lot more expensive doing the exact same thing, so I think the GHI tier is actually a lot more fitting for that. Then we've got the Siegebreaker. The Siegebreaker is actually better than the Nocturnal. It is the exact same weapon, but it has better stats and a better 6 perk, so for that reason, I'm going to put it in the STU tier. Then we've got the Grunt, the This is the weapon. This one also pairs well with First Shot Rio. It has guaranteed crits, really good single target damage, high accuracy, long range, and it's a semi-auto. So I think the Grunt is perfectly well suited for the GHI tier. The Tiger is another Tiger Jaw. Nope, not Tiger Jaw, it's a shotgun. This is another military weapon like the Lynx. It is totally garbage. Stormguide, you will never convince me otherwise. He's honestly planning to fund a video featuring this weapon. So if you guys want to see that on the channel, look forward to that. Yeah, Bull Ben's war cry from the stream. Twitch link down below if you guys want to watch these live. I think it's in the STU tier because it's just garbage. This is the Floor Flusher, one of the better weapons in the entire game. It is pretty much an elemental weapon only. It's weird. It's only unique to the Art Deco weapons where they have that 44% extra damage to elemental targets. This thing with the right elemental coverage is DEF for sure. But, yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that, actually. The Death Ray. We used to think that the Electroshock... I used to think the Electroshock rifle was based off of the Death Ray, but it's actually based off the Argon Assault rifle. It's still pretty good. Still decent weapon. I'd recommend using it. I think the DEF tier is more fitting for that one. Then we got the Death Stalker. This thing is honestly garbage. It is so bad. Getting kills with it is difficult. This is actually one of the weapons that killed my best perk series, because I made a video on it, spent like an hour of work, and the view count did not justify covering bottom tier weapons. I always had these ambitions that I would make a best perks for every weapon in the game, and then some weapons taught me that it's just not worth it. but it has a scope, and I think burst weapons are tight. So DEF tier is perfect for the Deathstalker. Hacksaw, one of the better weapons in the entire game. You pair those with totally rocking out and crack shot. Easy GHI tier for sure. Then we've got the Hammer Crush, another GHI tier. This thing is really hard hitting, semi-auto weapon. It shoots shotgun shells, which is fun. It's kind of like the Super Shredder, the sniper of the shotgun sniper. It is technically a sniper, the Super Shredder, but it shoots shotgun shells again. Kind of fun. And then the last one on the list is the Pain Train. One of the better weapons in the entire game, but it sounds like a train, and trains are lame. So PQR for sure. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my list. We don't have anything in the Y or Z tier, but that's just because most ARs are pretty good. If you guys liked what I like, if you guys liked my picks, you want to comment down below, you can do so. Subscribe, like the video, and if you took any of this video seriously, you should check the date on the video.